McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City, breaking us down the high school baseball scene and more every week. Mike, good morning to you.
Hey, Mike, how are you?
We're doing well, and I want to get into some Diamond Classic talk because I know the field will be announced tomorrow evening, if I'm not mistaken, and I know it's something you've written about in the Press of Atlantic City this week, maybe some projections as to who's in, who's out, but let's start in the Cape Atlantic League and tell us who should get in automatically from each conference.
Well, the leader of each conference, as of tomorrow, gets an automatic invite, and those two, spots have already been clinched. It'll be Mainland Regional out of the American Conference and Buna Regional out of the National Conference. Buna has been a perennial Diamond Classic invitee the past couple of years, but for Mainland, kind of a neat story there. They haven't been in since 2008, and so a neat story for Mainland, making their first Diamond appearance in about 7 years.
A number of Cape Atlantic League teams with a chance for at-large bids as well. So let's break them down one at a time. I think Ocean City may be the leader of the pack in terms of the at-large possibilities. Would you agree with that? What are the chances the Red Raiders get in? I know they've been snubbed a little bit in some recent years.
Well, absolutely. I think Ocean City is the number one team for an at-large bid. If you look at the Diamond Classic, I think there's one of the neat things about the Classic is it takes a representative or two from just about every league and every conference, every division in South Jersey. So I think there's something like 10 automatic bids, and then there are 6 at-large bids. And I think Ocean City is in line for one of those at-large bids. The only New Jersey loss they have is to Mainland. They've got some big wins over St. Augustine, and they did the job this week. They didn't falter this week. They got a big win over McGarry on Thursday, another great pitching performance by Sean Mooney in that game. And then they take care of business against Atlantic City yesterday at the Sandcastle. So I would think that Ocean City would be in pretty good shape for an at-large bid.
What about Apsagami? It's a team you mentioned there, Ocean City with the win over Gammy this week. But, Gammy's an interesting case. They have some pretty solid wins this season. They beat St. Augustine. They blanked them on the road. We'll get head coach Brian Wastel's take a little bit later on in the show. He'll join us. But, what's your take on Apsagami? Have they done enough to get in? Certainly one of those teams on the bubble.
Well, I think on the bubble is the correct word for both Apsagami and St. Augustine. I think when you look at those teams, I think it's going to really come down to, how strong are the other at-large teams in South Jersey. Like we said, there are only 6 bids, 6 at-large bids. The Cape Atlantic League usually gets 3 teams in the Diamond Classic, and some years it has gotten 4. Have Apsagami and St. Augustine done enough to get, to put 4 teams in the Cape Atlantic League? I think it's really going to come down to, what the other, how strong the other at-large teams are in South Jersey. I think in, Apsagami's case and St. Augustine's case, they might be 1 win shy of getting in. You mentioned Apsagami's got that big win over St. Augustine. They've got a win over Washington Township earlier in the season, with Washington Township not having the season that they've had in the past. Apsagami might be 1 win shy. And obviously St. Augustine, the defending champion, they're looking at a situation where, they could be on the outside looking in when the invites are announced tomorrow night at 6 o'clock.
Yeah, really an interesting case there because, as you mentioned, the Hermits went on that spectacular run a year ago to win the Diamond Classic. And coming into this season, I know a lot of people were pretty high on them. And, let's be honest, they've played some tough competition, but they've also lost some games that I think a lot of people expected them to win. The fact that they are the defending champions, does that carry any weight in this? I know really it shouldn't, but you say St. Augustine and you assume they belong in the field.
Right, I think it does carry some weight, but again, you've got to look at their body of work. If you look at them right now, they're in 4th place in the Cape Atlantic League American Conference. They played Gloucester Catholic tough. They lost that game 1-0 last Sunday out at Millville. I think you look at them in Apsagami and you say the same thing. Where is that win? Where is that win to sort of put them over the top? So I think they're going to have to, look at how the other at-large teams in South Jersey have performed. But right now, if I had to analyze it, I would say Ocean City has a very good chance of getting in, and I would say kind of Apsagami and St. Augustine, on the bubble, and might end up on the outside looking in when the bids are announced.
We'll close the Diamond Classic talk with this question. Help our listeners understand the tournament a little bit. You certainly know it a lot better than I do. I mean, I always describe it as the unofficial championship of South Jersey. We've talked about automatic invitations, at-large bids. It doesn't matter if you're non-public, public, what group size, and a couple different locations. I know one of the venues has changed this year, and then you also have that clock on the pitches, right, if I'm not mistaken?
Right, exactly. It's a great tournament. It's 16 of the best teams in South Jersey, and it really doesn't discriminate. It takes, schools from small leagues, schools from big leagues. There are an automatic invites. It's not all just Group 4 schools in there, so it's kind of like the NCAA tournament in that respect. And the other interesting thing is the tournament is not seeded. The draw is set every year, so and it changes every year. So depending on where you go, you could have a championship matchup in the first round because it's automatically predetermined that, the Cape Atlantic League American Conference team is going to play the Tri-County Royal representative. And so the draw is predetermined every season, so that's the other thing. And then the other thing you mentioned is the speed-up rules. You hear a lot these days about baseball, major leagues trying to speed up the game. The Diamond Classic games are, have certain speed-up rules. Innings must start in, I think, 30 seconds. Batters can't leave the box. Pitchers must be automatically, pitchers and catchers must automatically have courtesy runners. So, and believe me, there's an umpire behind home plate with a horn that, blows the horn, and it's ball one or strike one if the pitcher doesn't throw the ball, if the batter doesn't get the box, ball one if the pitcher doesn't throw the ball fast enough. So it's not just lip service. They do enforce the speed-up rules. And the other neat thing this year for kind of Cape Atlantic League baseball fans is previously the tournament's 4 opening round sites have been over, by Philadelphia. This year, Hamilton will host 2 games. So that's kind of a neat thing for local baseball fans if they want to see good baseball in the Cape Atlantic League area. Even though Hamilton's not in the Cape anymore, they can head out to Hamilton, Atlantic County, then, and see some Diamond Classic baseball.
Let's be honest, we still think of Hamilton in the Cape Atlantic League,
exactly.
Even if they're
They'll
elsewhere.
They'll always be a member of the Cape, no matter what they say, deep down.
They'll always hold a place in your heart.
Right, exactly.
Checking in right now with Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City. We're talking Diamond Classic baseball tournament and more. So, Mike, certainly the Diamond Classic is something a lot of high school baseball fans look forward to, but it's not the end-all, be-all. Certainly the state tournament would rank a lot higher on a lot of teams' lists. So, who are some local teams that maybe won't be playing in the Diamond Classic, but some teams that are setting themselves up for some possible high seeds in the state tournament? I know it's hard to believe, but the cutoff is right around the corner. You throw out a team like, certainly a St. Joe of Hamilton, who really went on that magical run a year ago, and again, a pretty solid team once again this year.
Yeah, I mentioned St. Joe of Hamilton with C.J. Lafragola, one of the big power hitters in South Jersey. They're up to, I think they're 10-4 at this point, but a kind of team that's, I think we've talked about them a couple of weeks ago, and I'll be honest, I expected them to kind of fade a little bit, but they've kept it up. ACIT with 3 big wins this week. They're 12-4. I know Matt Mamora had some big games for them, some big hits for them. I think he had a 2-run double helping beat Cedar Creek 2-1 this week. So ACIT 12-4, they're going to have a pretty high seed in, I believe, the South Jersey Group 2 bracket. And there's a team that, has quietly put together an outstanding season in what is just their second or third varsity baseball season.
Let's talk a little track and field. I know you had a chance to check out or at least hear about the South Jersey Open and up at Delsea. And I know a few guys, some Cape Atlantic League guys, some local guys doing some big things there.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing about the South Jersey Open is kind of the start of the individual season. I think we have one more relay event today, the South Jersey Open relay event at Egg Harbor Township at 2 o'clock. But then we kind of turn our attention to the individual season. We start with the county championships coming up this week. So it's really an exciting time for track and field. And the South Jersey Open out at Delsea on Thursday featured some, a lot of the South Jersey's top athletes. And what's exciting there is some sophomores kind of really turned some heads, some Cape Atlantic League sophomores. Eric Barnes, a particular EHT runner, 155 and change, won the 800. That's a excellent time. It's the fastest time in the state up to this point. Obviously times are going to get a lot faster as we head into the championship part of the season, but for a sophomore to run a time like that and sort of kind of establish himself as a runner to watch is pretty exciting. And this week you've got the Atlantic County track and field championships coming up, and some good matchups there. You know, you've got the EHT boys going up against the Oakcrest boys. That'll be a fantastic battle. And on the girls' side, you've got the Absegami girls going up against the EHT girls. The EHT girls have won 4 or 5 Atlantic County championships in a row, but Absegami beat EHT in a dual meet earlier this season, so they'll kind of have a rematch at the Atlantic County Championships. So kind of an exciting and big Atlantic County track and field championships to look forward to at Buna.
Catching up with Mike McGarry on the South Jersey Sports Report, Mike from the Press of Atlantic City. And Mike, you had a really nice feature piece this week in the paper about St. Joe softball player Carly Testa. And I know we don't talk a ton of softball here, but, you know, what is it about Testa's story that stands out? She's certainly a name that we've spoken about a lot on this show, hitting some big marks for that Wildcat softball team.
Well, you don't want to talk about numbers all the time when I talk to players, but when you look at her numbers, I think 170 hits, I mean, in her career is just tremendous. And then you look at her batting average, you know, 694 batting average, is 700 on base percentage. I mean, those are just some tremendous numbers out there by Carly. When you look at it, those are statistics that kind of turn your head right there. And also just an interesting story by her, you know, kind of the fact that she grew up hating to make out, and, you know, she had to come to terms with it. I think she came to terms with it by deciding never to make out again and batting 700 the rest of her life. So, just an excellent job. And, you know, I really enjoy doing those My Life features that we have in the paper every Friday. It's just a chance to really have a 20-minute conversation with a kid, get to know them as more than just a softball player, get to know their background, kind of what they like, don't like, you know, where they're going to college, why they decided to go to college. I think it's just a really neat thing to do, and every Friday we have one. It gets a lot of positive feedback. I think it gives a chance to, a lot of these athletes are just great kids, and I think, that feature allows some of their personality to kind of shine through, hopefully, a little bit.
And that playoff cutoff date, you know, I alluded to it earlier on. It's sort of sneaking up on me, at least. I don't know if it's sneaking up on area softball and baseball teams, but it's right around the corner, right?
Absolutely. I mean, it's basically next weekend, and that's the thing about the spring. I mean, the spring is a very hectic season. It's compressed into about 2 months with all the rain and, spring break vacation. It seems like all the action happens in about 2 to 3 weeks. So you're right. It does, the spring season is hectic, and sometimes it seems like it's ending before it even gets started. But that's just, that's the nature of the spring. That's the nature of the, 70 high school sporting events a day, basically.
I want to ask you, too, before I let you go, we had Gordon Hill on to start the show. Of course, former St. Joe of Hamilton standout football player, went on to star at Sacred Heart. And Hill, along with former teammate Max Vallis, who went on to play at Virginia, both of those guys with a very reasonable shot to get drafted later on today. I know Vallis' stock a little bit higher than Hill's maybe, but Hill's certainly a guy you could hear his name called in the later rounds, too. I mean, you covered both of those guys in high school, and for me, it was hard to believe that no St. Joe football player has been drafted before. I assume someone had. We all know Jack Corcoran played a little time on a practice squad in the NFL, but sort of a neat story there. Former teammates, 2 kids that grew up together, and 2 kids who really have a chance to have their dreams come true later today.
Right, you mentioned Jack Corcoran as a guy who, got some time in the NFL. It's funny, I was talking before a St. Joe football game this year with some of their assistants saying, the only thing that the program was really missing that hadn't accomplished was they hadn't put somebody in the NFL, basically, who had a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-year career in the NFL. Well, that certainly seems to be turning around now with Max Velez, and even, at that time they said, Gordon Hill was getting some interest from some NFL teams too. So, especially Max Velez with, he would seem to be a guy who would be drafted. I think he's the youngest player, might be the youngest player eligible in the draft, but there's a guy who just had, freakish athletic ability, and a guy who is, I believe 6'4", 6'5", long, has got the ability to grow, put on weight. When you look at Max Velez, you think, you would think he has a lot of potential. So you think at some point an NFL team would take him, just based on his upside of talent alone. So it looks like St. Joe is going to continue to pile up the accomplishments and the program will add to its resume today. Hopefully, if things go the way those two, the way Gordon Hill and Max Velez wanted to today.
I'll tell you what, Mike, if there was a draft for area sports writers, you'd probably go early second round. I'd love to give you first round, but you'd probably go early second round.
I'll take it. Those second-round guys got to work a little harder, so I'll take the motivation.
We got to keep you honest. All right, Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City, thanks as always for taking the time. We look forward to that Diamond Classic field being announced later on tomorrow. Have fun with the rest of the spring sports season. We'll talk to you next week.
All right, thanks a lot, Mike. Appreciate it.
All right, you got it. Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City.